Hey, what's going on, everybody? Good evening. It's Monday. You're in the marriage shop, and we're here for you. Like 3,000 miles later, 12 hours ago, we were like literally, I think 12 hours ago, we were standing in the airport in Redmond, Oregon. Yep, in the middle of Oregon, 12 hours ago. The wonders of air travel. I'm Mike. She's Wendy. Welcome to the marriage shop, y'all. Oh, we've been tired before, but you ain't seen nothing. Wait a minute. I thought you were wearing a hat tonight. What happened to your cap? Change plans? What?
There was some feedback. Did you hear that?
I did not hear that.
Oh.
Oh. Anyway, yeah.
Like a high pitched sound.
For real?
Yeah.
Okay.
So hey, Lisa McNeil and Quick Dog. Thanks for being here.
Quick, what's going on, man? Good to see you, man. You and Lady T.
We are barely here.
We're barely here, but we're here.
We are here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like you said, we're in the marriage shop. We just left Oregon. We posted a couple of pictures, and y'all, let me tell you, it was cold.
Look, cold. I think we left, what was it? Was it 14, 16? What was it?
16.
16, snow on the ground. It's a different kind of snow, though. I never experienced, like, dry snow. It's weird, right? It's pretty weird. It's kind of like powdery, but it, like, glistened in the night. 4 o'clock in the morning, it was, like, glistening. It was magical.
It was beautiful.
But it was cold,
beautiful.
though. It was crazy.
DT Jack says world travelers rubbing it in.
But, I mean, technically speaking, it's more like state travelers. But, whatever. Country travel. But, yeah, man. Anyway, it's good to see y'all in here. And we, it was cold. It was cold and it was cold. But, it was beautiful, though. Mm-hmm. Never been to Central Oregon. It was, like, pretty amazing.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, the people were really nice. The scenery was beautiful. We learned some stuff about Oregon. We had a good time. We met about 500 people there to work on their marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were mad cool. So shouts out to everybody in Central Oregon and everywhere y'all came from. Washington State, Cali, Texas, with Nevada and some other places. So
Yeah. And Portland for sure. There were a lot of people from Portland.
Yeah.
So we met some amazing people this past weekend, and we had an amazing time serving alongside Chris and Elisa Grace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were great. It was our first time. They actually were in our speaker class back when we started on this Weekend of Remember thing
Mm-hmm.
back in November of 2019.
Yeah.
And so they were in that class, and it's the first time we got to serve with them. It was a good time.
It was, and even though it was cold,
Yeah,
even though you slipped a couple of times.
I slipped one time.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you slipped
I
more
did
than
not
once.
say I slipped more than one. I slipped one time.
Okay, you slipped once, even though
Yes.
you were sick.
I was not sick. Well, I mean, I was this. You call that sick? I wouldn't call that sick.
No, but it wasn't this.
But well, it was kind of this. Well, I mean, anyway, so I mean, we went from Syracuse, like teens, here, 80s in Pollen, and then boom, then it hit me. Then we went there, and I'm trying to, get my voice right the whole weekend. And
Yeah.
so it was in the teens, and now we're back to 80s,
It was
Nice.
86 when we got back today.
86. So
Pollen covering every
Everything.
single thing. Everything's green. Everything's blooming.
and you know what that means?
What?
It's time for the Masters.
Oh, on cue.
Indeed.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's how it happens.
So-
We have some squirrels. We had one squirrel. Apparently, we have a squirrel family now. So our one squirrel, I was pretty certain was a male squirrel, but clearly we now have a female squirrel who has taken to ripping up our patio furniture to get the stuffing inside of it. Clearly because she is nesting right now. So I would not have known that's what was happening if I had not seen a TikTok video of this guy with his two squirrels, and he kind of chronicles what's happening with them. And his mama squirrel's name is Maxine.
well, don't name our mama squirrel because she may not be with us.
I know.
Too much longer.
Man, she is tearing
So
it
that's
up.
all I'm gonna say.
I mean, it started out, she just took a little bit of the stuffing, but we left, we came back, and she was going to town. So I think we're getting close. That's all I got to say.
Getting close to
about
what?
that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it must be
we-
time to have those little baby
Oh,
squirrels.
it must be time for us to deal with these squirrels that we should have dealt with a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah.
There
Well,
can't be, property damage is a whole nother thing. I'm just saying.
spring brings these things. That's how it goes.
Okay.
Yep.
Anyway.
So, hey, Tara Carroll, thanks
What's up,
for
Tara
joining
Carroll?
us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry we couldn't make it to your annual meeting or annual banquet. We were not here, but if we had been here, we would have been there.
It's one of my favorite events of the whole year. Dang it.
Yes.
So come on, hey, Daryl Jackson, come on, get this thing. I mean,
Oh,
you know
my
what?
goodness.
We're gonna take the rest of this conversation offline because I know we got animal lovers, and I love the animals. I do. My animals are great. That's all I gotta say. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. So anyway, oh good. She said it was fabulous.
Rub
It
it in.
always is.
Rub it
It's
in, Tara
always
Carroll.
fun. It's always fabulous. So
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're back.
Yes.
Were we here last week?
Somewhat. Yes.
Yes.
I'm sure we were.
What did we talk about?
I see. There it is. Remember, we were on the way back from somewhere last week, weren't we?
Oh, did we do a pop up
we
live?
did the whole pop up at the airport
That
twice thing. Was that last week or the week
that was
before?
last week?
I don't know.
Coming back from Syracuse? Maybe?
Oh, Syracuse. Yeah. That. Squirrels is not what that is. It mean, well, what is it? Quick. If it's not squirrels, what is it? I'm pretty sure squirrels. And by the way, these squirrels in our backyard are like, I mean, when they hit the cottage roof out here, it's like, boom.
Yeah.
Boom. It sounds like a man up there, like putting shingles.
They're
I mean,
pretty swole. It is true.
it's crazy.
And I noticed that they started digging up all of the stuff that they buried. So we have all of the
Is
little...
that what? That's true. You know
Yes.
what? No.
We have a whole ecosystem happening in our
It's a
backyard.
whole ecosystem, and then and soon the rabbits will really get going.
They're already going. I told you.
I mean, will really get going.
Well, if you see
'Cause
two
now-
rabbits, that means they already getting
And
going,
then-
and then you'll see five.
And rabbits are like, and they get like real disrespectful. And then the deer come through, and they want to lay there. It's a whole
They've
thing.
already been here too. We
It's a
had to
whole-
bring the dogs back. They get everybody back in order.
Yeah, but we dealt with the geese though.
We did deal with the geese. So
I mean, the dog. They don't like the dog.
We
too.
have an Aussie, and we we tried a couple of things, and they would not really respond to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, why don't you just let Dallas go out there? And so you took Dallas out
Dallas
there.
handled his business. I love that
He
dog.
went out there like a working dog and
DT Jackson said squirrels are delicious. Hey, look,
looked at him. Not delicious.
delicious.
Ugh.
No, remember there's a guy in this pizza joint up in Oregon. I think he said take 6 squirrels to make a stew or something like that. Remember that? Were
That's
you in there?
gross. No.
That must have been when I went back to pick it up. Yeah,
That's
I was like, I didn't
nasty.
know there was an official number of squirrels apparently
I know
to
in
make
Duck
this.
Dynasty they talked about they would like cook squirrels and eat squirrels and
People, a lot of people eat squirrels. Matter of fact, I think in Detroit, one dude was like selling squirrels at a point. I mean, listen, you got to
I'm
get your
good.
grind on. I like it. Anyway,
Tomcats get rid of everything.
yeah, but then you got to deal with cats. So it's like a whole, right? Ugh, I swear. Anyway, but
Yeah.
we listen. We gonna get into this thing tonight, and so we want you to share this with somebody or call them on in because I think that tonight it's kind of a sensitive topic, and you know we've gone around it at different angles before, but like at these conferences every week, and we do questions and answers, and there's always more questions that can be answered. Now, before I say this too, the Marriage Shop is not affiliated with Family Life or the Weekend to Remember. All right, so just so you are clear on that, but there's all kind of questions that come. They're common questions, right? But there's some themes that pop up at certain events. And so, in this particular one, the specific question was around infidelity and whether or not to share that after it's over. So, you know, y'all know our story, how and we share it pretty openly at this event, and we think that's important because, you know, we get up there, you're on stage and having a really good time, and we know there's room of 5, 6, 700 people,
Yeah.
then somebody's going through. And as much as they want to have a good time, when you're going through, you know, you feel very isolated.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're the only one going through it, and you feel like there's no hope. And a lot of people come to these marriage conferences as their last ditch effort to find some hope. And so I think we do people a disservice if we stand up there and have a blast and shuck and jive, but don't share some truth with them about what they're really looking at. Right?
Who's shucking and jiving?
Shuck and jive. I mean, you know them.
We don't just go to make it seem like marriage is all unicorns and rainbows. That's what you're saying, right?
That's not what I'm saying because I would never use the word unicorns and rainbows. But yeah,
Yes.
you know them. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
that you know, there's some real, again, on the premise of why we even do this, there's some real talk to be had about real things, real challenges, real issues that occur in marriage.
Yeah.
And just because, you know, what happened in ours doesn't mean that it will happen in yours or has happened in yours. But we do know that most marriages will encounter some type of conflict, some type of mistrust, some type of tested, you know, trial or something. And being able to overcome those things is really key to the overall success of your marriage.
Yes. So go ahead, like right now, go ahead, like this, share it, do what you got to do, tag somebody. You may notice you didn't get any alerts tonight. That's because we literally hopped out the plane, got here, ran in, you know, grabbed a snack,
Yep.
like some hot tamales, and and fired it up. So
Yes.
you are the alert system tonight.
Yeah.
All right. So, but go ahead and do that because, yeah, I think that you know, and by at this point, it's been our theory has been pretty much confirmed, I guess, validated that you know the ability to openly talk about something that's very difficult to talk about allows people to realize, wow, there is hope, and maybe it's okay. Maybe they will make it, even though it feels like they might not. Right? So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what it is.
I mean, and that's true. I think part of what we believe our marriage, our journey has been purposed for is to offer hope
Yeah.
to other people. And so, in the midst of chaos and crisis and hurting and shame and guilt and everything that people deal with,
Yeah.
being able to see a light or know that there can be some light,
Yeah.
I think is very helpful.
Yes.
And that's our prayer before we go, before we speak, before we share, before we wrote the book, before we started doing this. It really is to reveal the things that most people like to hide. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. So, where do you want to start?
I don't know. Let's start
Okay.
with you. Well, what was the specific question?
Well, I won't get the specific,
Oh,
but
okay.
basically, this person, and I won't even, but bottom line is this person, there was infidelity in the past. They were the person who did it, and now everything's good,
Yeah.
right? They ended that relationship. The marriage is going really well.
Yep.
And so the question is, like, they want to know, like, should they tell them? Should they reveal to the spouse what happened? Because I guess there's some guilt going on. Excuse me, some guilt going on, and they're wondering if they should tell the spouse what happened.
Yeah.
Because because they don't want to disrupt what's happening. You know,
Right.
now that things are going really well, they don't want to introduce that, and that's a very common thing, especially when people hear us talk about our story.
Yeah.
Like some people have kind of gotten past it, and they begin wondering, like, should I say anything?
Yeah.
Or so it kind of falls into a couple of categories. Some people have made a decision. This is going to the grave.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
And it's like, and people have asked me, like, why would you say anything in the first place?
Yeah.
Gotten that. Then there's people who have held it. They're trying to go to the grave with it, but they're not at peace with it. Right. And so there's this struggle going on as far as what to, if they reveal anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then there are people who have revealed things and it's just completely blown everything up. Actually, generally it does blow everything up. Some people recover, some people don't.
Yep.
Right. And so it's not a simple thing.
No.
Yeah.
No, and one of the things that I think we don't always get the opportunity to say, or and I don't want to say it's a disclaimer, but we can't tell you how to heal what occurs between the two of you.
Yeah.
Right? So our story is our story. We share it to really kind of encourage and inspire hope that it's possible,
Yes.
right? To encourage people to have God be an integral part of their marriage. To show people what is possible when you are in a relationship with Christ, to show people what's possible when things are too difficult for the two of you to resolve. I mean, those are the things, but we can't say, okay, here's the blueprint and here's how you do it. Step one, do what we did, because what happened between us may not work for you.
Yeah.
And I think it's necessary to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe people know that, but I want to say that because I think it's really important. I think
Yeah.
often we look at what's happening with someone else, or what it looks like is happening with someone else, and it's like, I want that.
Yep.
But I think that we all have to be careful about saying we want that, because I don't think anybody ever reveals all of it. You know
Right.
what I mean? And so I can never share with you the hurt I felt, right? Because only I know what I experienced. Mike can never share with you the hurt he felt, because only Mike knows what he experienced. We can talk about it and we can describe it, but you would never know how it impacted us.
Well, and I think that there's a few pieces here, right? There's like, why would you disclose anyways? Something happened, nobody found out. Why would you disclose it anyway? So I think we need to deal with that.
Yeah.
And we also need to deal with the aftermath when you do that.
Yeah.
What happens? Because some people will, I've had people who are in the midst of struggle come to me and say, "Hey, I want to do what you guys are doing. Like, I want to be able to use this
Yeah.
to help." Well, time out. Like, when you're in the midst of the storm, you got to save yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the time to now go writing books and being on stage, and
Yeah.
you got to really make sure that what you have is like real and strong, because it has to be able to withstand. If you are called, and I think it's not about you wanting to do it, it's about God saying you need to share this with somebody.
Yeah.
Because if you're called to do that, you got to be in a place where your relationship can withstand that.
Yeah.
And so, for people who just kind of desire to tell the story or to tell a story, maybe this ain't the one, right?
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's important to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think not yet, right? And
Right.
so when you're in the midst of a storm, the first thing that you should do is shelter from the storm, right? You have to find a place where you can be quiet and come together, and then focus on each other in a protected space during the storm. Not go out storm chasing or go
that's
out.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's never advised that you run straight into it. yes, you confront it, but running into a storm is always going to cause damage, more damage than maybe is necessary. So, to your point, when you're in the midst of something, it may be just too soon for you to be able to go out and share that testimony right away.
Right.
And I say that to say that yes, you can be healed by sharing your testimony. I don't want to discount that at all.
Yeah.
But you both have to be ready, and it is important for you to be healed to a point of being able to share it, that it will be the power that you seek within it will be able to be shared.
Yeah.
And but I
So
like what you said, that God will call you to that, not you.
yeah. So and so we need to come back to that. I think we're a little bit we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. First,
Yeah,
Ashley,
yeah.
what's going on, Ashley?
Hey, Ashley.
Hey, go ahead and share this with somebody, girl. Anyway, good to see you in here.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, you know, if anybody has any opinion right now, share it, keep it to yourself. I'm just curious if anybody wants to throw that. Go ahead, throw it in the chat if you have a strong opinion about that.
Yeah, hey Shelly, you're right on time. And so, while everybody's throwing their opinion about that in the chat, we're just talking about, if infidelity occurs within your marriage, does your spouse need to know?
Yeah.
And so we're just kind of walking that back, talking about our story, talking about the power of testimony, talking about being called to share it, and being sensitive to when the timing might be right.
And the
So,
question that we received in terms of somebody having gone through that and gotten past it, and now wondering if she needs to bring that up,
yeah,
right? And
Yeah.
so I think that, like I said, it's a very common story, and I think that some people, their responses can be very strong about that, right? So we're just curious what your thoughts are on it. And I will say that somebody asked me this weekend, like, why did you share it? Like, why say anything at all? And and I've thought about the question because I've been asked that a lot,
Yep.
especially since we released the book. Like, why'd you share it? I mean, some people are like, there is zero chance. Like, you go to the grave with that because it's too painful and you don't want to, right?
Yeah.
If you've gotten past it, why share it?
Yeah.
It's a fair point. And so I guess I'll answer that question in this way. I'm thinking about like the path that our marriage has taken,
yeah,
and like what we do now with regard to marriage. I wonder if I hadn't shared that, but the call was still there for us to share with married couples. How, for one reason at least, is how does that look now with me standing there with all the whatever shrouded in secrecy? Like, what am I saying, and how are we presenting, and is that real? Is that authentic? And is there anything that anybody can use from what we're giving out, right? If I'm up there kind of sort of avoiding a huge chunk of something that's very real, and without you knowing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really key, and it's important. And you and I have talked about that, even in terms of what compelled you to confess. You hear that?
I did.
I think it's my microphone. What compelled you to admit or confess it, and at that point, and what you were experiencing, or what brought you to it, and then even as you began to share, being convicted about having shared everything that you needed to share. I mean, and so there is do you say something without saying everything, or do you say nothing, right? Because there's you could admit to something without admitting to everything. And is that, I mean, I guess it's another question, right?
It is another question.
Yeah. Yeah, so DT Jack says keep it to yourself.
That's just straightforward.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So who else? DT Jack. Daryl says keep it to yourself. Anybody else? Because I think that nobody wants to be the receiver of said information like that, right? And so I think a lot of people who are when that revelation occurs, the person who's receiving the information is like, why say something now?
Yeah.
Why not just live your life?
Yeah, potentially,
Mm-hmm.
potentially, and it just depends. I mean, so I was talking about, and we'll come to Lisa's comment, but I was talking about, where you were and what was happening with you, and even what compelled you to come forward, and then if you come to the other side of it, and what I say, it would have been fine if you had not confessed it, right? I think I can say this consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever there is something underlying and I can sense that there's something there, something's off with you or
Mm-hmm.
something's not right with you, I always prefer to know what is happening with you. I want to know what's going on versus um, coming to it, becoming apathetic to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or ignoring it, right? Not being sensitive to a change in you.
Yeah.
Because I think that in all honesty, we can't share and wholeheartedly be connected. Intimacy is predicated on sharing and honesty,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's impossible to have complete and total
Did the squirrel get
intimacy. I
in?
know
Go
complete
ahead.
and total intimacy in the absence of honesty and transparency.
Mm-hmm.
You think that's true?
Yeah, I mean, I think that true intimacy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
what I'm hearing you say is,
Mm-hmm.
if somebody can get to the point where it's just like, okay, I'm good with that, I'm at peace.
Yeah.
If it feels real, then it's real to people, right? How do you
Mm.
know if you're not getting true intimacy,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think that
That's good.
there's a second piece too that I think was really major for me,
Mm-hmm.
and that is, I mean, I know how people are, and even when people don't say anything to you,
Mm-hmm.
like when people know things about you or know things about you or your life or your person that you don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, I was like, I just cannot have you walking around like in ignorance like that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I
So
mean,
I
like
don't.
it's all good and on top of the world, and the whole time there's stuff happening or had happened behind the scenes. It's just not fair.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about being fair, I mean, we all make mistakes, and so again, how you come at it, what you think about it, it really does depend on your perspectives. What you value and what you believe
Mm-hmm.
is necessary in order for you to have true intimacy in your
Mm-hmm.
marriage. So Lisa
Yeah.
says honesty is always the right thing to do. That doesn't mean it will lead to a good outcome, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is the struggle most people have. The possibility of losing the marriage may be too hard for people to face.
Yeah.
Even if the marriage survives, it could be too damaged to be healthy. And I think that's really a key point. And to your point, um, I read a few things, and there's kind of two lines of thought on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's something that it was a one-time thing that happened, like maybe you drank too much or whatever, and it was
Mm-hmm.
just a one-time thing, and you don't even remember, then should you say anything about that versus a long-time affair
Mm-hmm.
where you have made a decision and you've done it more than once, and it's a continual thing, because in any case, whether it's impaired judgment or flawed decision making, there is something that is being satisfied
Mm-hmm.
outside of the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
It's necessary to confront what's not being met within the marriage, the expectations that are not being met within the marriage, to really kind of get to the root of why someone would cheat in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's.
Ashley replying to Lisa says, "That's true, but that guilt though, I couldn't live with that."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. She says, and honestly, I feel like a part of you changes, and your partner can sense something is off, even if you don't say anything. If you're in
Mm-hmm.
tune like that, and that,
Yeah.
that's kind of the point I was making.
Yep.
And some people are good at it though. Some people are good at faking it. It's just like, hey, all you ever got from me was surface anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
it's easy for me to continue to play that role.
Well, I think maybe I don't think it's simple as all you got was surface, and so I'm just going to tell you. I think that's for some people like because I look through the Bible to try to find like is there something that says, hey, if you did it, confess that you did it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very clear that we confess to Jesus, right? We confess our sins to God, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And ask for forgiveness. In effect, maybe that's enough, right? But then there's this element of this relationship. And so for some people, it's like that forgiveness, and they accept, you know what, yep, I'm flawed, you know, I'm jacked up, I fixed it, and I'm moving on. And I think that the peace that they have with that is real, because like Daryl said, he said he doesn't feel you should bring that much hurt and pain to your significant other to ease your guilt. If you stop that behavior and if it's truly behind you, then move on from it,
Yes.
right? And so it's a fair point. You know, and so for me it was, so I mentioned those first two things, right? But there's something that we created in our marriage, that is in our relationship, and then there's a point where that something was not what it was. And so it's like, you think it's what it was, I know it's not what it was. So I don't know. So to me, I was like, I don't know. And a lot of people, you know, we talk about guilt, but we kind of peel back because a lot of times it's, you know, and even you kind of went the route of, you know, basically now if you put this weight down, you feel better now, right? And so I think it was less about easing guilt and more about truth.
Well,
I don't know.
again, I mean, you know, it says a lot about who you are and who you were at that point, right? I think that some people their motive is to relieve themselves of some guilt, right? I think that's possibly a scenario. I think that also in terms of being past it, right? And so if it is in fact ended over and never to be done again, is a different situation than if there's a question about it.
Yeah.
Right? The question about whether or not it could potentially happen again. And so on the side of if it is overdone, died, and you are now committed to repairing and working on your marriage, then, you know, you have to decide in that situation. But if there's even an inkling of a chance that you could go back or do something again, then it requires something different.
What about that other piece?
What's the other piece?
The other piece is what if, you know, what if the levee breaks, somebody cracks, somebody, you know, comes back around, writes a letter, leaves some evidence, says, you know, tells a story or whatever, and somehow that story finds its way back.
Yeah.
Then what?
Yeah, I mean, it is. So the way that we had been discussing it was when one spouse confesses to the other, right? Because that's what the question was predicated on. Do I tell them?
Yep.
But there was no caveat of, do I tell them before they find out some other way, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, but I think.
I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, it's like, do you want to come clean, or do you want to kind of walk around with this paranoia or this uncertainty about whether or not somehow it's going to leak or come back?
Well, no, you're kind of setting up a premise I'm not setting up, though.
Okay, go
I'm
ahead.
simply saying, if we're talking about I'm kind of sitting right now on this, you know, we're not going to bring that hurt into the relationship.
Yeah.
Right? It's over, moved on, and it's done, right? That's it. Not paranoid, you're not looking over your shoulder. You decided that it's done. But then somehow the pieces get to put together, and boom, there's something that is revealed later on. I'm simply saying, when the moving on has been done, but it comes around in some other way, then what?
Yeah, I mean, so we're not saying two different things, but it is two different scenarios. I mean, there's a situation where you control the narrative, and then there's the situation where the narrative finds its way.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I believe that once there's any more than you involved in anything, you don't control the narrative.
Yeah. Right. It is what it is. And so, you know, we're not here to say that it's better for the spouse to find out versus being told by the other spouse. We're not here to say, you know.
We're not. I'm just asking if you had an opinion on the.
I'm talking to them.
I know, but you haven't. I really answered the question.
What's the question? What's the question?
I said you. I'm simply asking, what is that? What does that look like? What does that feel like when that blind side comes from some other direction out of the blue? You know what I mean? If your spouse has decided, hey, I'm gonna be, you know, whatever. If you decided, like, you know what, yeah, this happened, I'm not saying anything. It's going to the grave with me. But somebody else don't take it to the grave. They share it.
Yeah.
And it comes back. What then?
That was a question for me?
It was just a question, yes.
Oh, I thought you were just throwing
Okay,
that out
all right,
there as
y'all.
a question.
I was, but you're here. I can't hear them.
Oh, okay.
I was
Well,
put
I
y'all
mean, but
y'all
you
typing on
can. You can
in,
type it on in.
but I'm asking you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, different outcome.
What do you
Different
mean?
outcome. It. So if I say hypothetically, in our scenario, if you had not confessed to me, what had happened, but I somehow found out by some other way, it would be far worse than you telling me. And that's just kind of how I lived. I mean, I even told my girls, don't lie to me. If you if you break something, if you do something wrong, if something happens, tell me the truth, and then perhaps your punishment may be may be less if you tell me the truth. But if I find out some other way, then it's going to be much worse. And I kind of feel that way because if you love me, then you owe me the truth. And if you choose to keep the truth from me, then I might question if you love me. I mean, and at that point, it's not even a question of trust; it's a question of love,
Yeah.
right? And I believe, and so that's for me. I can't speak for you, but I think that really getting to the root of it. How could you do something to hurt the person that you love the most? Is a question that immediately comes to mind. Why
Yes.
would you do this? How could you do this? But often, when infidelity occurs or affairs of any sort occurs, whether it's emotional, sexual, thought about it, pornography, whatever it is, when those things occur, then it often is an indicator. It's a symptom of
Yeah.
something else. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, so I get why people would say zero chance, never tell them that. And there have been people literally, and I'm not to over dramatize this thing, but people have like murdered folks in order to
Oh
keep
yeah.
secrets like that,
Oh, absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
And so, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. I was just going to say, I mean, again, even though we know everybody makes mistakes, I mean, some things it's difficult to forgive. And this is one of them. This
Yeah.
this one is one of them, especially, in a marriage where a person is blindsided,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you have an open marriage and that's an agreement that you have, or you both came into it with again, it's your mutual agreement on how you do your thing. But if you don't have that and it's predicated on vows and you live out those vows and you profess to be true to each other and faithful to each other, then that's something altogether different.
Yeah.
And so this whole idea, and Quick had put in there before, how long or does the spouse get to continue to bring it up?
Yeah.
And so that really kind of gets into the what happens next piece of it.
Yeah.
If the person confesses and there is forgiveness, then what does the next thing look like? And one of the most difficult things is to get past it. So that's just the beginning.
Yep.
Confronting it, confessing it, or confessing it, confronting it, and then finding your way forward is the beginning of the journey. It's not, it doesn't end there, it starts there.
Yeah. And so, you know, I get totally why people are like, yeah, I wouldn't say anything because if you do, I can tell you, like, I did not go into this thinking, hey, you know what, I want to lead marriage ministry with Wendy and one day speak to married couples.
No.
That day on whatever road that was. I wanted to survive the day. I wanted to wake up the next day married to my wife. That's all I wanted. And I knew that that was in serious jeopardy. And so there's no guarantee where the thing will go. But what I can say is that if you choose to confess, there's going to be a dark period, generally, right?
Yep.
You just don't know. You can't control what happens at that point,
Yep.
you know? And so, but Ashley said it's selfish not to tell the truth. At that point, you're prioritizing your wants over what is needed for the marriage. Interesting point. Selfishness.
yeah.
Because now, if I don't tell the truth, and again, this is not, and this is very sensitive, so this is not to push anybody in any direction if you're
Yeah.
struggling with this.
Yeah.
But what I recognize is that at the point I don't tell the truth, now what we have are two different marriages. Right?
Yeah.
I want to preserve what we had. I want it to look like what it was. So I'm going to now manipulate things so that the whole truth isn't there. Right?
Yeah.
And so you go on, you're happy, you're good. And some people are good with that. And I've heard them say, you know what, I don't want to know the truth.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a reality, and that's cool. Some people know the truth, but they still live in this happy reality because they don't want to deal with the hurtful parts. So they decide to just hold on to the parts that don't hurt. That's the choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Lisa said, "Well, if you're married to someone who's capable of murder, just take it to the grave." And it's easy to say that, but the truth is, we don't really know what anybody is capable of until pushed to a point.
Yeah.
I mean, and so while some people show some tendencies, and some people might, become unhinged or have some anger management, all those things. I mean,
Yeah.
you know your person. Um, you just never know what would be the thing that breaks the person who hasn't shown any of that before. It is a very delicate subject. It's a very delicate area, but I want to get past just the confessing and the telling and get really to the root, right? And so it doesn't necessarily mean that something is missing in your marriage, but it could mean that something is missing, that you perceive that something is missing, or there's something that you're not receiving within that relationship that you're seeking, right? And whether that's attention, that's time, that's whatever it is. So whoever the person is, it could be that both of you are not having your needs met in that way. And I don't mean sexual needs. It could be emotional needs. But there's something that is not being provided or supplied within your marriage in order for something like that to happen in most instances. And so I talked about the one night stand, drunken, bout or whatever. There are different things that could happen. We are not the authority on all things marital affair, right? We can talk about in generalizations, we can talk about statistics, we can talk about those types of things, but I think what?
No, go
What are you
ahead.
gonna say? I just think that it's important that when you start out, you talk about your expectations and you continue to talk and openly communicate about your expectations. And so at the point that you stop being honest with your spouse about your dissatisfaction with where you are, I think that you are opening yourselves up to more vulnerability.
Yeah, I think yes, but there's more. I mean, I think you will find people who cheat who are not unhappy.
Uh-huh.
They will say that nothing's missing.
Yeah.
Hey, I just like what I
That's
like.
what they say. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why I said it's a different motivation. But
Yeah,
so,
that's what I'm
yeah.
saying. So I
Yeah.
don't deal with motivation. It's so deep. I mean, I don't.
It is.
We don't have time tonight.
Yeah, we don't.
Right.
We don't.
And so I think I want to just make sure I want to kind of keep it where we started it. Right. Because there are folks who are struggling with, do I confess this or do I not?
Yeah, well, I
Right.
don't. I think it's important to not distinguish the two, even though it seems like it's going on a tangent, because I think the motivation really then does kind of influence the response and the follow-on action, right? And so if you're somebody who says, I'm grown, I can do what I want to do, this is my life, then you may not feel compelled to confess anything. There's no question. We wouldn't be discussing it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
but for the person who says, does my spouse need to know? Clearly they're confronting a question of, I'm feeling compelled, or I'm feeling afraid, or I'm feeling something
Yeah.
about, I don't know what will happen next, right?
Yeah,
So-
but you were saying talk about what's missing or what compelled, right? So, but
Oh.
this is a person who has kind of they're in another place, right?
Sure.
That happened. Now, according to them, they're good, right? So
well,
is
the
it about
relationship is good.
right? And so is
Yeah.
it a matter of going back? So well, this is what was missing. You know what I mean? Because to me, it kind of
Well, what I'm saying is, if you just move forward without exploring, discovering, or satisfying what was missing, then it's difficult to have a successful marriage going forward because you'll fall into the same trap.
maybe, but I don't.
Perhaps.
But I don't know. We don't. We didn't get a chance to talk to this particular person.
Right,
We don't know
we
the
don't
full
have all that
context.
information.
All we have, a piece of paper says we're in a really good place now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and I
So-
think that's what makes it challenging, right? Is even when we talked about the other week about when is the right time to bring up conflict. Everything's going fine. We're in a good place. There's no angst. There's no anxiety. Everybody's good. And now, you introduce conflict. It disrupts the what was a semblance of peace, but clearly it's not real peace if one of us is not at peace.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would suggest that there is no good time to bring up conflict.
Okay.
I mean, just
Not necessarily. So,
based on that conversation.
so Ashley said, oh, so Shannon said, describe dark period.
Dark period. Emotionally dark, relationally dark. What I mean is a lot of sadness, a lot of heaviness, a lot of confusion. It's very disorienting when you're going along, and because even when you know something's wrong, your spouse doesn't, and then you introduce like what you know. So now, boom, lid's ripped off, and so now the truth begins to come out. So there's like confusion there, there's anger there, there's sadness there, right? And so you got to kind of somehow get through that, but it's very difficult. And your life continues to go on. Like work is going on, the kids are there, people are coming, family is visiting, all this stuff is happening around you, and you're trying to carry the weight of what to do next because you don't know what's going to happen next.
Right.
And so there is a real, when you don't know what's going to happen, like when you're in a place where like literally it could go any way, very difficult to carry. And then there's a lot of questions to answer. For me, a lot of questions that Wendy had, a lot of questions over the course of days,
Yeah.
right? And so not a lot of sleep going on. It was just rough.
It was rough. Yeah, it was dark. I mean, I think that existing with a crisis of conscience is a hard place to be. I think that it's hard to hide if that is you. But the fact remains that there are some people who don't even, bat an eye at it. It's just kind of
Yeah.
like, I did what I did. I'm not
Yeah.
feeling any kind of
Right.
conflict or crisis within me.
Yeah, but I was just simply responding to his question about the dark
Yeah.
period after
Yeah.
confessing something like that. That's really
Oh yeah,
that part.
yeah. Confessing it can absolutely blow everything up, and that is the risk, right? There is an inherent risk in confessing that you had an affair or that you were unfaithful, and I don't know that there wouldn't be, right? Because you are confessing that you did something that went against your covenant with your spouse. I mean, and so I'm not aware of any scenario where a spouse confessed to another spouse and the other spouse just said, "Oh, thank you so much for telling me, and I'm happy about this, and now we can move forward." I'm not aware of any situation that happens like that. I can only speak to what happened with us. And my immediate response was anger. Just like I believe that, not everybody responds with anger, but I was angry.
Rage.
Yeah, rage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, so when you talk about dark, it was dark. All good things that he would have received from me, he did not receive from me in that immediate post confession period. And that was not, it wasn't an intentional hurt, right? It wasn't like a targeted, I'm going to hurt you because you hurt me, but it was a willful withholding because I needed time to examine what was happening with me. And I think, again, it's important to know that we don't get to dictate how the other person responds. We don't get to dictate how they respond, how long they, need to heal, whether or not they ask questions, whether or not they answer questions. We don't get to dictate any of that. And the bottom line is you get what you get.
Yep.
And you don't know what you're going to get.
Yep.
But it is about really being able to live with yourself. I think at the end of the day, and forgiveness is probably the second half of this,
Yes,
right?
for sure.
We have to go into a conversation about forgiveness,
You mean
but
like
not tonight.
Okay, good.
Not tonight. No, we don't have that kind of time. But in terms of being triggered by things, even once you move past the dark period, there are things that could be reminders that will come up. Hence, the person may bring it up again or ask you again. The time limit on that is really determined by the two of you.
Yeah, and to be clear about that, like if you're the one who is the we'll call it the one who has done the hurting, and there's questions about why you did it, and the person that you did it with, or whatever,
Yeah.
those could come back, and it's important to just Answer the questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we can say, hey, listen, we talked about it, I'm moving on, right? But you can't pack up and move on and leave your spouse in the rearview mirror because you decided it's over.
Yeah.
Like, if you open up Pandora's box, sometimes you got to deal with that box being open and allow it to close naturally, but you can't force it closed.
Yeah. That's good.
Ashley asked, why are people unable to consider the consequences of the actions before the action? Ashley, I mean, if you could answer that question, I mean, that would fix everything, right?
Yeah.
But there's something we have to consider. We just finished talking about the invisible threat this weekend, right? We're talking about Satan, and we're talking about the nature of people
Yeah.
and this skin we're wrapped in, and the ability for our own mind to convince us that it's going to be okay, to convince us that we can do and go and say certain things and it's just going to be okay.
Yeah.
And what I tell people, though, it's easier to avoid getting into some foolishness than it is to like make a decision whether or not to do it. Meaning, keeping your distance from things. If I'm walking around in the cake shop, guess what, y'all? I can smell the cake. I don't buy me some cake. Just saying. But
Yeah.
if you want to avoid, avoid sweets, don't go into the bakery,
That's funny.
right? But there's something about when you get in there, you're like, you know what, I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, we talk about not shopping hungry all the time, right? You've heard about not shopping hungry. Why can't you make the same decision, like when you're hungry or when you're not hungry, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why can't your decision making is totally different if you eat a whole meal before you go to the grocery store?
Yeah.
Right? So there's something about our mind that just, that we as human beings are susceptible to making bad decisions in certain circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Back to what you were saying about your response to quick, and I just wanted to say that it's important to understand that the person who says that they're good now, they're over it, is done, and it's in the past. If it does come to light, it's over for you, but it is beginning for for your spouse, right?
Yeah,
so
that's
even
good.
if it happened 25 years ago for you, and it's like, swept under the rug or whatever, water under the bridge, whatever people say, at the point that they find out, it is just beginning for them.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No,
Yeah,
that
was
is.
and so the journey, and so it's hard to be like, okay, but it's over, right? So get over it. No,
Right.
it's just starting. So they have to go through and process it.
Yeah.
And then to Ashley, I like that you talked about the sense of self-control and our will being stronger, our want being stronger than our will, right? We are susceptible, and Ashley, you know this better than most, right? We're susceptible to our habits and our hangups and the things that get us in trouble. The way we've always done things tends to, put us in a place and predispose us to doing things those same ways. If I've always been independent, I'm going to be independent. If I've always, kind of made decisions about what I'm going to do, I'm going to continue to do that and maybe not pause or consider something different. And so I don't believe that in the moment that people are being vulnerable to whatever it is that they end up doing, I don't believe that they're going through maybe the whole thought process, right? They're only dealing with what's happening with me in this moment, right? It's not, well, if I do this, then all of these potential things could happen. In the heat of it, it is a very selfish thing. It is about satisfying that desire at that moment. And so let's see.
So I want to, but one more thing on that is,
Yeah.
You're exactly right. I think that there's certain things is going to be there might be some consequences, but until you live it, you don't know. And then when you do, you're like, oh my God, I'm never doing that again, right?
Some people.
I think that what I didn't necessarily anticipate, I don't know how I would have, but the extent of the pain that Wendy was in, it's like in that moment, I remember standing in the hallway, like in our near our bathroom in the hallway. I remember like the anguish that I felt because of the anguish that she felt. And I remember thinking, she will never feel this way again. Not in my hands. There is no way, right? Because if you're connected to somebody, you should feel what they feel.
Yeah.
And so Yeah, that was this. Yeah. So I was,
That's sweet.
yeah.
And it's tough. I mean, that's taking accountability and ownership for what you did, and that's important. I think that people, again, they distance themselves, right? And so our our innate nature, our nature is to survive. It is to protect ourselves first,
Yeah.
and then those that we love. So it's hard to overcome that and be able to have the hope, or be able to see the good that potentially could come from it.
Yeah.
And so, what do we say about it? Well, our experience is that we both had a relationship with God. We were both, at least attending a church and involved in church at some level. We knew about Christ. We knew about forgiveness. We knew about sin. Not everybody is in that place,
Yeah.
right? And so the idea that our marriage was not a contract. It wasn't that we just said, okay, we do. We actually meant it. We understood that our marriage was between three of us.
Yeah.
That really foundationally was the only way we were able to survive what happened.
Yeah.
Had we not been in that place, I do not believe that we would be in this place. And so I think there was another question. Okay, so
Yeah.
Shannon said, "Do you think opening the door?" Oh wait, he went back to say that the man that had an affair with
Yes.
his mom
Ended
told
up
his
causing
dad,
that, yeah.
yeah, and his dad still deals with that.
Devastating.
Then again, it's unresolved, right? There's no, he doesn't have the opportunity maybe to learn more or ask those questions, and so it's an unresolved thing that can really kind of plant a seed of hurt that
Yeah.
will last eternally, right? Not being able to get your questions answered can have some really devastating consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and,
so
that's unfortunate.
it is. And so you don't have the other person there to help reconcile that, right?
Yes.
Which can be tough.
Yeah.
So, he also asked, "Do you think me opening the door of cheating allows my sons to think it's cool?" I think not at all.
Yeah.
My dad and I talked about that quite extensively, and there's never a time where I thought, yeah, I mean, I'm be just like my pops
Yeah.
in that way. You know what I mean? Because he shared with me the consequences of all that. You know, and I saw the consequences of it. It's like that didn't seem very cool to me. And so I think it's about how you share it, because the way that we often share things with our young men, we flip it the other way, right? We talk about being the Mac, being the man, being whatever,
Yeah.
and being a player, and we glorify that, right? And so I think that's a problem, with our young men. But I don't think sharing it in a way, in the context of what God is calling us to be as men, as fathers, as husbands, I don't think that that's a problem at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, and to your point, the people who say I'm going to cheat and you're not going to have anything to say about it, right? I'm going to blatantly, openly cheat and continue to cheat. It really kind of breeds damaging relationships. But what it does is it limits what that person is willing to give you. They may not leave you for whatever reason. They may not leave you, but are you getting all of them? It's a question to ask, right? Because if you're not honoring them, then it is very difficult for them to be able to honor you. So yeah, if you're a player and that's how you playing it, you get what you get. So, Shelly says, and thanks Lisa and Ashley for kind of circling that thing back and responding to each other.
Appreciate y'all.
Shelly says, look how God is using this dark, excruciatingly hurtful time in your marriage to glorify Him and show other couples that it is possible to have Him restore your marriage. As always, I'm thankful for your openness and honesty. And we're thankful for you.
Thank you, Shelly.
It is hard. Whenever we talk about it, there are certain elements of it that I'm not going to say that we relive, but we certainly review, right? And so
Yes.
it's, how do we share this in a way that, that gets to what it needs to get to, but also demonstrates God's healing on the other side of it, right?
Yeah.
What is possible, that seed of hope,
Yeah.
within it. And so even to Quick, you can if you expose cheating, you also need to expose reconciliation. You
Yeah.
need to expose how to overcome that and how to fix it and how to confront it and how to be accountable to it. It's not just one-sided. And I think when we get one-sided or we only look at it from one perspective, nobody benefits from that. Nobody benefits from that. So yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so, and that is the, every time even when we wrote it, every time I read it after we wrote it, the part that really, it, I'm always, it always makes me feel emotional, in a very grateful way, but in a very humble way, is how God has been able to first the fact that Wendy, the whole reason it's all possible is because Wendy, I think, in a moment had a decision, she had a choice, and she chose forgiveness, and because she chose that, I often say that she was more Christ-like than I was at that moment, right? And because she made that choice, then years down the road, God has used something that has destroyed countless people and certainly many people that we know, and somehow allowed us to use that in order to bless people.
Yeah.
What? So yeah, that's
Yeah, we don't deserve that, but we receive it. Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
yeah,
So I did come across something that said when dealing with infidelity in Christian marriages, and I know we're kind of past our time, but
yeah,
it said first to seek forgiveness. If you're considering confessing to your spouse, seek forgiveness first. Potentially go for counseling. And the counseling may help you to be honest and about your hurts and confront your own feelings in the situation. It said next to be open to listening and acknowledging wrong. I think that's an important piece too. Next is recognizing negative relationship patterns. What is existing. We thought what we had was a dream,
yeah,
but there was room to grow. There was room to grow. The next is agreeing to establish healthy patterns, right? How will we go forward? What will our relationship look like from this point forward? And we had that time where I
Yes.
was like, going forward, so this is going to be this. And then create opportunities for, what did I put? I don't know, but create opportunities to communicate openly.
Yes.
So yeah, so those are just some suggestions. It's not a blueprint. It's not a step by step. But if you are in Christ, then we certainly believe that there is hope. That anything that occurs within your marriage can be healed. If you are not a believer and you do not yet have that relationship, then we certainly encourage and invite you to learn more about it.
Yeah.
There is healing, there is love, and there is forgiveness when you follow Jesus.
yes. Last thing I'll say is that some of you have been told that if you go through something like this, that reconciliation is impossible, healing is impossible, your marriage is impossible. I'm here to tell you that with God, anything's possible.
Yeah. That's
And that's
good.
all I got to say.
That's good.
We out.
Right. Well, Shannon has a last question, and he said, "Have y'all fallen back in
Back
love?"
in love.
And,
That's
and
funny.
Let me say this: we never fell out of love. I never stopped loving him, even through the hurt, the pain, the betrayal, the cheating, whatever, all of it. I never stopped loving him. So, yeah, there you go.
There you go. Let's pray, y'all. Heavenly Father, we just come tonight just thanking you for being God. Thanking you for healing, for grace, for forgiveness. Just thanking you for being our everything, God, and for making all things possible. We ask that you bring restoration and healing to whomever needs it, God. Bless these couples, bless their marriages, bless their homes and families. As always, God, help us to love each other the way that you love us. And we'll be sure to give you all the honor, the glory, and the praise. We thank you. We love you. Pray these and all blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. So, if God says so, we'll be back on Monday. I think the lights got
The
brighter.
light just got brighter.
We'll be back
Okay.
on Monday around 7.
I don't know
So-
I don't know what's happening. There's sounds. The lights are getting bright. We gotta We getting out of
Time to
here.
go.
All right.
But love y'all. Have a
Oh yeah,
What is going on?
oh yeah.
It did
It's
get
your boy
brighter.
JC.
Did that one get through?
I'm in the mood, love. Yeah. Lately I've been constantly thinking about you, babe. You drive me crazy, yeah. And girl, I want this. Got me all up in my feelings. Oh, what a feeling, yeah. I knew the first time I laid eyes on you that you would be here forever. I'm not being arrogant, and I still can't take my eyes off you. 'Cause you made me better, so much better. I'm in the mood to love you for a lifetime. I'm in the mood to love you for a lifetime, baby. I love your kindness, I love your confidence. Ooh, you're the finest. So glad you're mine, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't wanna be with nobody else. Give me your love, that's all the wealth I need. Baby, you're priceless to me, yeah. To love you for a lifetime. I'm in the mood to love you for a lifetime, yeah. Promise I'ma be around. I'ma always hold you down. Won't you come and hold me now? Won't you come and hold me now? I just got a new coupe. Yeah, I know I got a roof, but I always keep it down with you. Yeah, and I know they see, girl, you're my queen. Beauty speaks for itself loud and clear. Yeah. So throw it in the air. It's the sweetest sound to follow my ear. And I want the world to know I'll love you forever. And that's a long time, babe. But I got time for you, baby. I'm in the mood. Ooh, lifetime, for a lifetime. I'm in the mood to love you, yeah. For a lifetime, lifetime, baby. Ooh, yeah. For a lifetime, oh, for a lifetime.